Hello, and welcome back for some more science. Now, I must admit, I'm rapidly becoming disillusioned with the idea of science, because every time I set out to do some science, I sort of set out thinking, oh, I'm just going to do something kind of nice and simple. I can build a few stations, some of which people say are good, some of which people say are bad, and we're kind of going to prove how good the stations which people say are good are, and how bad the stations which people say are bad are, and what inevitably happens is the stations which everybody says, oh, these are mediocre, don't build those, turn out to be unexpected stars. And the stations which everybody says are fantastic are awful, or at least not as good as they're supposed to be. So I thought, let's do a nice simple experiment for once. So when I presented this is the compact PBS terminus. And I had a few comments on this. And the people say, this is not optimal, Tim Wolf. You're not recommending people build the best station. So one thing that was mentioned almost immediately was you need acceleration tracks. So I thought I'd set that up. So I set this up with the same signaling, but this time with acceleration tracks on my forest, and also with long acceleration tracks. Now, I wanted to try both because I think our thing that we found with the railroads was that having these long sections really hurts the throughput, and I think this will be the same case here. The other thing that's mentioned almost immediately was they said, well, you're missing the signals. And by the signals, I mean this layout, which is a very popular layout. You will see this a lot, which is where you have a two-way path signal, or a general path, say, or whatever, not a two-way, a non-one-way path signal, where the train arrives here, and there's a penalty for going through the signal from the back, and it does something quite interesting, which is it makes the train wait here unless there's a free platform. And if these are the other way around, that doesn't happen. The train goes straight to these signals and will clog that junction. And so we put that in. I thought, well, this should be superior. But also, as people quite willingly point out when I signal things, these signals here, this you say you signal like a monster, a complete and total sociopath, because the correct way to signal, everybody tells me, is to leave a train length after the junction to stop it deadlocking. Now, this is actually true in a lot of cases where there is a situation that trains that are not on this part of the network can deadlock it, which means that you could have a train waiting across this junction here, if there's a train here and a train here and a train here, and that would really just kill any ability to do anything. Now, in reality, it's very unlikely with a situation like this that you'll be able to save yourself by having a train all the way in here and having this junction free on this simple type of junction, than you would with just having a train partway across it, waiting for trains. That's not true of all junctions. There are some flat junctions where actually this is a very good idea, but it's not all of them. But anyway, and we should see if this is superior. We just see this give superior results. So I'm going to set those trains going. I'm going to just set them all going. And I've also added an improvement to the laboratory. And so what's my big improvement for the laboratory? Well, one thing that wasn't really giving us great results was just looking at the monthly production of these. So since this was my normal thing, just let the network bed in a bit and let this go for a few months and see where they come out. They're sort of going, oh, look at that. That's 1400, and then it's 1365, and this is 1260, and then sometimes it's a different value, and so on and so forth. And this sometimes is down to 1260. So, is this better than that? Who knows? It depends what month I look at it in. So I wanted to get rid of that. So I made a small game script, which actually tracks the averages. I just need to let this run a little bit more, and then I'm going to reset this, because that will then reset it to the point where these have been kind of producing and running for a while. So let's do that. That will run for a little while. And let's just let these bed in there. Let's get these good. So I'm going to just let these run. And I'm going to check back kind of at the end of 1976. So when we had a good whole year of production on these. And so therefore any kind of month-to-month differences should average themselves out nicely. We should see what the overall throughput of this is. You'll see that I have trains occasionally waiting here. This is the result of some off-screen science, which this actually gives most efficient designs get slightly higher throughput with this short waiting period than they do if things are always moving. So there we go. So end of 1976. We could buy the Intercity 125, but we want to look at what's happening with the station. So remember how I said I hated doing science? Well, here we go again. I am basically, my problem with science is that as a scientist, I am basically living in the equivalent of sort of the 14th century, where every time I do something, it is not remotely the result which should happen. So the result which should happen is the stations everybody says is better, are better. But in fact, let's have a look. So the compact PBS sawmill, the highest production, averages out at 1325 tons per month through this station. The acceleration tracks, the short acceleration tracks, it did fairly well. And they did 1255. That's a respectable station there. But it was still slower. Still slightly slower. 1257. The long acceleration tracks did exactly what I expected, which is good. My hypothesis was correct here. The long acceleration track is not a good idea. It just kills this in terms of its throughput. You really don't want this. Now, over here, we have the station signals with the exit. So this with the exit signal is interesting. It has very, very infinitesimally, very slightly, tiny amount of throughput higher than the short acceleration track. But this signal, let's just go back here. This signal that you're told is absolutely essential, this clever PBS trick, does almost nothing. In fact, yes, so you see this. The monthly fluctuations, we're seeing this, and it gives you maybe 2 tons a month. If that 2 tons a month is really critical to you, and you can put these signals in, but they do almost nothing. And you would be way better off just building compact PBS station. Now, the station signal no exit has an interesting thing, and that's actually quite poor. And that's given up about 100 tons of throughput. And the reason it's given up 100 tons of throughput is the joy of this being quite a long section. So, and it seems strange, really, because you'd think, well, but no trains are ever having to traverse this at the same time. And this train has made its way all the way through there at this station. So this is the loading station. But let's have a look at the unloading station. So the unloading station is slightly different. So this train is ready to go, and then let us see. This train is slightly waiting. Let's see if we can catch it up. This is very, very counterintuitive. I would expect this to be just as fast, and yet it isn't. Very strange, because you cannot actually see these trains ever waiting for that signal block to become free, but it does seem to make a difference, which is highly odd. And that really is unexpected. That this should not be any worse looking at these trains going through, but they do seem to run somewhat slightly slower for it. At least that's what our throughput is telling us. Very, very odd. So this actually does hurt your throughput, and that's quite unexpected to me, because from seeing there we go. So you see there, just that once, just every once in a while, this train has to wait for this block to become free, and that over time actually does impact the throughput. And over time costs us, compared to the ETIC signal ones, costs us about 70 tons or so. So I will go out now and I will take my kind of public stoning and being put in the stocks for basically what I have found from this yet again, and which is that this is less good than this, and which is less good than the compact. You may as well just build the compact. And another reason why I would suggest building the compact And this goes into sort of for explaining things to new players, which is, I can just show some of this, and this, it's very hard to make it their mistake with this, as long as you get that these are path signals. And the worst thing you could do is possibly you could put a block signal here, and then you'd only end up with one train in there. But if I were to go back down here and show you these, so these path signals are facing this way. Obviously, I made them one-way path signals. Let's do that. Let's convert these both to one-way path signals. I've now created total failure. And so one frustration is you have to constantly swap between signals. There's lots of extra clicks, which compact PBS doesn't have. Anyway, let's put these back. Let's fix that. One other thing is what happens if I get this signaling wrong? And let's try and see if I can turn these signals around. So I don't want to convert these, I want to turn them around. And so again, let's just turn these around. That's fine, it's reserved its path. Total chaos. And the Pathfinder just goes, actually no. Actually just, I'm going to let trains go through there. So again, this is really, like, fine aesthetically if you want to build a station. And I personally, I'm going to make a confession here, I hate the aesthetics of this thing that the train's always passing signals from the wrong side. That is a personal dislike, but I've always gone, well, it's fine. Surely it's efficient, and this is where we get into the horror of, well, no, it's not. Rather, it is efficient. I mean, it's not a horrible station by any means, but you're giving up 80 tons a month of throughputs that you get from the compact PBS, and this is just, again, it's not the result that you would expect, but actually turns out that this, as we keep coming back to, this is a star station. The compact PBS station is a great little station, and I thoroughly recommend you build it. I thoroughly recommend you sort of join in the heresy, and in sort of 700 years we will be proven to have actually been right all along about the scientific method and experimenting, and that again, I think, as a conclusion, that the OSA is, when you ask about these things, you will find people will give you very, very opinionated advice on this. They will actually, you will be told this station here, that the station signals no exits, which is not horrific, but it's one of the lower performing stations here. And you'll be told, if you don't do this, you're totally wrong, and everything is going to jam up, and it's all going to be horrible, and you're going to have an inefficient network. And you would go away thinking, yes, that's true, unless you actually did this, unless you actually put them all on a map together and said, well, which is the best? And suddenly you'd find out that this is the kind of hero. So there is kind of a strong moral message here, which is science is actually worth doing in OpenTTD. It's actually worth trying things out for yourself and going, well, what happens if I do X? What happens if I do Y? And not sort of just relying on what's out there, because as we found, there's actually some very unexpected things happen when you start testing these. So I should leave that there. And as I say, I shall wander out and take my public stoning for yet more heresy. And I shall possibly see you for more OpenTTD science, or I might see you for a future episode, which is OpenTTD just doing what other people tell you to do and not questioning it, because that sounds like it would generate far fewer problems than this.